Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV, Whiskey 1 Good Vibrations. Last night, a viewer asked me a question in one of the comments on my most recent video. And it had to do, I believe, with random wire antennas, end-fed random wire antennas. And because it was late and it was a little bit past my bedtime, I inadvertently deleted the comment. But the question had to do with the conundrum of having a fiberglass vehicle. That means it doesn't conduct anything, doesn't conduct electricity anyway. He wanted to operate on 27 megahertz, 144 megahertz, and 440 megahertz. So one HF band, one VHF band, and one UHF band. And I began thinking about that because I have a convertible which has a largely plastic, specially treated plastic body, and of course a rag top. So it doesn't really conduct and allow for any kind of substantial radio frequency ground. Now on bands such as 144 or 440 megahertz, I could conceivably take a regular mag mount vertical antenna and glue it to the vehicle somewhere, perhaps even on the rag top itself. That would kind of preclude the use of the rag top for letting it down and maybe create a little bit of a problem. But with a fiberglass vehicle on a fiberglass roof, you could epoxy glue a mag mount antenna to the center of that fiberglass roof and then run 1/4 wavelength radial wires, RF ground radial wires outward, taping them to the top of the vehicle, and thereby get a pretty good ground plane antenna on any frequency 2 meters or above. That is 144 megahertz bands and up. Now, as for the CB 27 megahertz problem, I really don't know what I would do in a situation like that. A lot of CBers tend to be of the bootleg variety and run more than the legally allotted amount of power. Otherwise, I just recommend using a handheld radio inside the vehicle, or one of these little what do you call them? Rubber ducky antennas just on top of the vehicle. But it wouldn't be a very good arrangement. It would be grossly inefficient. So what I'm going to do is ask you if you've ever faced this conundrum, and if so, how you have dealt with it. A fiberglass vehicle in particular, or some of these new industrial plastic vehicle bodies that do not provide a substantial RF ground. You might use the engine block or even the chassis of the vehicle as a ground, but how would you get, those are not located in convenient places for the positioning of antennas. So at VHF and above, I don't see any problem. But what if you wanted to operate, say, 14 megahertz using a fiberglass vehicle in Mobile? I have thought about that problem quite a bit, but haven't devoted any energy to it because I don't like to drive very much anymore, particularly being under the influence of benzodiazepines much of the time, unfortunately. Reduces my attention, and I just don't like driving anymore. I'm just not, I prefer, if I operate at all, to operate a base station from home, a fixed station from home. And that's what that random wire video was about, was operating from home, where you can get a substantial RF and electrical ground. So my question to you, and comments are open, is have you faced this conundrum, or more specifically, if you have, what solutions have you tried? What results have you gotten? Uh, or do you have any ideas in general? Uh, Suggestions are welcome, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who'd like to hear them. Stanjamalisco W1GV saying 73, which means best regards, of course. And so long, which, regardless of the vehicle type, antenna type, etc., 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 always translates to, in my native fist, di-di-di-da-di-da.